eating healthy is so important and it really makes a big difference in your life. Welcome to the class. I'm excited about this class.
I'm excited. Look at all this. This looks
I
great.
know. Can y'all smell the peppers? It smells wonderful, right? Well, I'm Chef Zoe Mueller. I'm here today because I'm going to teach you 2 amazing recipes. They're my recipes. Hopefully you like them. And I think they're really simple recipes, but we're utilizing very Mexican ingredients for this class. So I hope that you really enjoy this class as much as I did when I was writing down these recipes. And so 2 simple recipes, which is, I'm going to mention the recipes really quickly. The theme of the class is Mexican Fiesta. When you say fiesta, that means party time, right? When you have a party, you have to have food, delicious food, and easy as well. But what makes this class so special is that we're going to go healthy version.
We have to.
Yes.
Right.
Because when you think Mexican, you think right away, whoa, how can Mexican be healthy? It's so greasy. But I'm going to teach you 2 amazing recipes that I enjoy all the time at my house, and they're perfect for people with that want to make changes as far as eating healthier. So one is tofu, es chorizo de tofu, and we're going to make it with eggs and tacos. It's an amazing recipe. And the second one is going to be I'm going to say it in Spanish, huevos escalfados en salsa de tomate, which means poached eggs and tomato sauce. That was really cool, right?
It sounds way cooler in Spanish.
So I'm going to pass it into our dietitian, and welcome to the new faces. We love having you here. Hope you enjoy this class as much as we do. And for the new people and the people that continue to come to this class, thank you so much for keep coming to the class, because we love to see your faces again and again. So, Julie?
Well, thank you guys. I'm Julie. I'm one of the dietitians here. And like she said, thank you for being here today. We're kind of continuing our trip around the world today. Next class is Italy, so we're hitting some of the main spots. But when I think of Mexican food, I do tend to think of it as being pretty heavy, fried, cheesy, rich. We don't usually associate it with healthy. What we're going to do today, though, is a lot of fresh ingredients, a lot of fresh herbs, a lot of spices, some good peppers. So we're adding a lot of flavor, but we're not really loading it down. Now, I will say, to be fair, and I'm going to have Zoe talk on this a little bit later, that I think we've kind of Americanized Mexican food, and our Tex-Mex is not really so much what the authentic Mexican dishes are. So hopefully you'll get to see a little taste of that today. You do have a handout that'll kind of give you some healthier options, kind of a eat this, not that, as far as some of the main components to Mexican food. So one of those is going to be the beans. So beans are a great food to incorporate. Lots of good fiber, lots of protein. If you do refried beans, though, we know we're adding a lot of fat and not the healthy fats at all. So if you choose just the black beans, you're going to eliminate all that unhealthy fat. The other thing is, instead of doing carnitas or chorizo, you want to do grilled chicken or fish, right? So we know that the carnitas and the chorizo are higher fat. And a lot of times in how they're prepared, it can also add some fat as well, whereas a grilled option is always great. Today we're actually going meatless, and we're doing tofu instead, so another option to try. Tortillas, flour tortillas, they're way too easy to eat, too many of them, for one thing. Second thing is they're just not as healthy for us, so you're much better off with a corn tortilla or a whole wheat tortilla. And then the chips and salsa, it's not that it's terrible, it's just that they keep coming and they keep bringing the baskets of chips, and you sit there and you mindlessly eat them. Before you know it, you're full and your main meal hasn't even come yet. So it's really the amount of chips that we have. The salsa is great. Now I will say that if you buy the salsa, it's typically going to have more sodium. So if you can make it yourself, and it's pretty easy to make at home, you're much better off. The other thing with Mexican that I want to say before we get started is that it gets demonized a lot of times because of the fat. And we think, oh, it's really high in fat. I would argue that almost a bigger concern would be the amount of carbohydrates you can consume in a traditional Mexican meal, especially if you're trying to watch your weight or your blood sugar. So anytime I'm educating someone on a good healthy diet, we talk about how to set up your plate. And we know that half of that should be non-starchy vegetables, a quarter should be a good protein source, and a quarter should be carbohydrates. So if you go out to a Mexican restaurant, you're going to get some chips. Well, that's a carbohydrate. You're going to get some tortillas, you're going to get rice, and you're going to get beans. that's 4 options from that carbohydrate group. So we're just kind of out of balance with our plate. So you can kind of be, choosy as far as what you want your main carbohydrate to come from. If you really love the chips, maybe you skip the tortillas. Or if you could do without the rice and beans, maybe you get a salad instead. So that way we just kind of bring it back into balance. With that said, if you have any questions throughout nutrition-wise, please let me know, and then we're going to get started with the recipes here.
Thank you, Julie. So the first recipe that I was thinking about starting with, which is, it just really became one of the favorites at home and with family members and also friends, is the huevos escalfados, which is the poached eggs. It's the most simple recipe, and I'm going to go ahead and go through all the ingredients listed, so you might want to change it to that page. And it's basically ingredients that we have at home. It's very, very simple ingredients. We're going to go ahead and get started with 3 tablespoons of olive oil. And then I like to get familiar with ingredients in case I'm allergic to any of the ingredients, right? Or someone at home dislikes one of the ingredients. I can always replace it with something. But this is such a basic recipe that I won't see somebody changing anything anyways. So 4 large eggs, 2 large cloves of garlic, and we're gonna finely chop those garlics. We also gonna need fresh, we can do cilantro, but this time we're gonna use, what do you call it, thyme,
The time.
right? Which is one of my favorite things. 4 tomatoes and half a teaspoon of salt. So the salt, we're gonna just add it at the end just to give our eggs a little bit of flavor, and it's just for tasting. Just a little pinch of salt will be wonderful. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. For this recipe, another additional ingredients for garnish could be fresh cilantro, which if you don't like it, you can always do parsley, right? So you can do a combination of both if you like. But this will be a very, very simple recipe. So I'm gonna go ahead and start by washing my hands, because we have to do that in the kitchen, right? Best tools in the kitchen, by the way.
And I want to point out while she's doing that, we're using the whole eggs here. And so that's something I always like to get the message out that is okay to do. So we don't need to skip the yolks. Actually, the yolks are where most of the nutrition is. It's where all the vitamins and minerals are. Really good source of 2 antioxidants, lutein and zeaxanthin, which are both good for our eyes. So if we want to reduce our risk of cataracts, macular degeneration, you want to make sure you're eating the yolks. And we now know, finally, that it doesn't affect our cholesterol like we used to think. In fact, eating the whole egg can help to raise your good cholesterol, your HDL. So there are a lot of egg like we're going to do here today.
Excellent. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with my bowl for the trash, because it'll help me to keep this space nice and clean. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to go ahead and saute my garlic, okay? And I'm going to turn this on. I'm going to put it to medium, right? So I have some garlic here that I'm going to do. And I'm going to do maybe 2 or 3. It really depends what I like, my choice. But another way of doing this, you can saute the garlic with the olive oil, or you can just, if you want to do something really, really quick, you can absolutely put the tomatoes here with the garlic. So I'm giving you the easiest way of making this recipe. So 4 tomatoes, you can put more than 4 tomatoes. If you want to make it for like 6 people, maybe you want to make like 6 tomatoes and 6 eggs, right? Okay, so we're going to blend this really, really quick. And if you help me with the oil, I have some oil here. And I brought all this little kitchen tools, so you can see, you want to get into it, right?
Yes. I'm going to go wash my hands.
Okay. And the texture you're looking for is something, your choice. If you like it a little chunky, then you can leave it like that. If you like it like very smooth, then you can just go longer with the blender. So we have some oil here. I love it when I'm going to move this so I can see everything, because I don't know if that's really actually.
Just pour it in.
Yes. Not everything, but maybe half of that.
Half?
Yes.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add the oil all over the pan. And I like to do this when I cook. First, I like to get it to a nice heat, so whenever the food touches the pan, it's gonna dance. We're gonna hear some music, and you're really gonna really toast whatever ingredients you add in to the oil. So let's go ahead and get it to a nice temperature. So for oils, we can always do olive or canola oil, right?
Sure,
We don't
either
have to.
one.
Either one can be okay, right? Okay. So I was thinking coconut oil, but my mom would never eat the eggs and tomato with coconut flavor.
It
So I was
may
like,
change the
I need
flavor
to.
a bit.
Yeah, it would really change
Yeah.
the flavor. So, okay, so let's go ahead and get it a little hot. So as you can see, this is very, very simple. It's got how many ingredients? This is only 6 ingredients, including the salt, right? So if we don't do the salt, it's only 5 ingredients. So ingredients that we usually have at home, if you don't have the fresh herbs, then you can always do dry. You don't have to do the fresh. I love fresh ingredients, especially when it's something so simple like this, right? So oil is looking good. And I know that it's not singing enough. So what I'm gonna do, if you add a little bit of salt at this point, what you're gonna create is moisture. So you're gonna get more of the juice of the tomatoes. So you wanna leave it like this, and then at the end you just add, now if you like it a little runnier, like if you want more of the sauce, then you can add a little bit of salt. But I love just to add the salt at the end, so that I can get the flavor of the tomatoes and not so much of the salt. Okay? So when we move this, yeah, it's starting to dance. So at this point, you only want like 30 seconds of your tomatoes with the oil. Let me move this over here. And at this point, I have some eggs here. Now, I like to put my eggs on an empty bowl before I just put it over here, because you don't know if the egg is going to come clean. I don't know if you ever came across eggs that are like pretty bad inside.
And that way you don't risk getting a little piece of egg shell in there or anything like that.
So we have 1 egg here. And you, at this point, when you see the salt's kind of like dancing a little bit, that's when you want to put the eggs like that. I remember when I was making this recipe, my brother, he's really picky with food, and he's like, I would never eat that. I don't see why you put the egg like that. Just crumble it and just make it like that with the hot sauce on top. I'm like, you're going to love this recipe. And just last night, he said, hey, I was calling you so that you can tell my wife how to make those the egg recipe. And I said, really? And I said, okay, so now I know you love it. You really love the recipe.
You converted him.
So, yeah, and I said, why don't you get on my Telemundo page, and you can actually look for my recipe. And then he said, just give me the recipe. And so I was giving him a really hard time. So, okay, so we have 4 here. At this point, what I want to do with the heat, I want to lower the heat just a little bit. We want it at medium, kind of like medium high heat. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and add my fresh herbs, which is my thyme. It's going to go like that. Smelling so good. Now, you can eat this with tortillas, with maybe some black beans on the side, like you were saying, except for refried beans, right? Because that will be a not healthy Mexican recipe. So, I don't know if you can see on the screen how beautiful this looks. At this point, fresh herbs go in there. We're going to cover this, and we're just going to let it be. And then at that point, you want to cook the eggs at your choice. If you like them a little runny, then you can just go ahead and stop the heat and uncover the eggs. I like them really well done. I don't know if you like them like that.
Well, and from a food safety standpoint, you do want to cook them to where the yolks and the whites are firm, especially if you're going through treatment, if you're immune compromised in any way. So I don't know if you knew this, but 142,000 illnesses each year are caused by people who ate eggs contaminated with salmonella. So salmonella is actually the biggest reason for foodborne illness. It's not just from eggs, but that's why you want to make sure that you are cooking it through. So you wouldn't want to let anything be runny. You obviously want to make sure you wash your hands in between handling the eggs and cracking them. When you purchase your eggs, you want to make sure none of them are cracked. Even though you could still use it, a lot of times the salmonella is on the outside of the shell, and so cracking it then could allow it to get into the egg. And then again, just making sure that it's cooked through. If you have, a casserole or an egg-based dish, you want to make sure it gets to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Any kind of dish that would call for, an undercooked or a raw egg, you'd want it to be pasteurized. That way we're making sure we're not having the bacteria in there.
That sounds good. That's why I like it well done. I want to be safe.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, you don't want to, it's not a pleasant illness to get.
Yeah. And for whatever reason, I don't like the texture of runny eggs. That's just one of the things that I do not like, just like broccoli. I don't know if you remember that part, that I don't like broccoli, but you can eat it all.
And you should.
Always.
You
Yes.
should.
I want to make sure that you eat the broccoli. It's one of those things that the texture and everything, if it's not really nice and crispy, then I really dislike the broccoli. But just the smell of the broccoli and the egg, for whatever reason, I don't know if this happens just to me, but when I eat eggs outside, like in a patio, I cannot eat them because the smell of them, something about the smell of the eggs that I cannot stand it outside. But if I'm inside, I'm okay. So if I'm inside, and somebody opens the window and I'm eating an egg, I have to just like stop eating it. And it's so funny because both of my kids are like that, and I didn't know that. And I made them the poached eggs. And one morning we're eating brunch, and my son is like, "Close the door because I'm eating the eggs." And I looked at him and I said, "Really?" I said, "I thought I was the only one crazy." He said, "I cannot eat eggs when the wind comes inside." And I was like, "Wow, that's kind of crazy." It's something, I don't know. It's just a...
Well, eggs
one of those things.
Sometimes can have a
Exactly.
interesting smell.
So this is the way your eggs will look, and I think they look beautiful. So at this point, you can just put them in the middle of the table, and then you can just enjoy it with family. I think this is a perfect brunch recipe. It is easy. When you invite friends over and family over, you don't really want to complicate your life with really hard recipes or complicated recipes. You want to just keep it very nice and simple. And we are about to try this recipe. So I'm going to put it right here because I have to make more.
Okay.
And I wanted to make it right now so that you can eat it nice and warm. And we're going to eat it with some amazing toasted bread, right? So our sous chef, Susie, is coming over here. Now, at this point, we're going to go ahead and sprinkle a little bit of salt. And I would recommend not to even add any black pepper because there's no need. If you leave it simple like this, you're going to really like it just the way it is. So, can we get somebody to try it first? And that way I can make some more.
So this is going to be hot out of the skillet.
Yes.
So be careful.
Exactly.
So
everybody's going to get one egg. So I'm really hoping that you didn't eat anything. So that looks beautiful already.
It does.
It smells wonderful, doesn't it? And
It
I
does.
think, what do you think adds the flavor to this recipe? By the ingredients in here, what do you think that really made this recipe, took the recipe to the next level?
The garlic and the thyme.
I'm sorry?
The garlic and the thyme.
Yes. So we always talk about stuff like that in this class. Fresh herbs or garlic really is going to take away from adding too much sodium and salt. So if you notice, I just sprinkled a little bit of salt and it was delicious because the garlic and any fresh herb that you incorporate in the dish is really going to make it so much better, and it's going to take it to a healthier
Well,
version,
sure, because
right?
we tend to think of those for flavor, and they
Yeah.
add tremendous flavor, but a lot of them are actually pretty anti-inflammatory as well. So you're actually kind of sneaking in some extra nutrition to your dish.
Absolutely. We're waiting for the eggs.
You're looking good. So yeah, so if you're setting up your plate, and this is a great way to do things if you're going out to eat, you want half your plate should be non-starchy vegetables, so things other than beans, corn, potatoes, peas. A quarter of it should be your carbohydrate, so that would be any type of grain, pasta, rice, breads. It would be those starchy vegetables I just mentioned. Even fruit would fall into that category, and then a quarter should be your protein. Now beans are kind of a combo. They have some protein, they just have a lot more carbohydrates, so that's why I stick them in the carbohydrate group. So some foods will kind of overlap. There'll be some protein, some fat, or some protein, some carbs, but that's the general way to do things.
Anybody here, before we start with this recipe, Anybody here likes chorizo or even know what chorizo is? Do y'all like it? Okay. I have a lot of stories to tell about chorizo, but I'm gonna just go for like not all of them, some. I'm gonna put this here. So the situation with chorizo is that it's a very traditional sausage from Mexico. It is in every household that you can imagine, and it goes from being beef, pork, and now they're coming up with soy chorizo. So I'm staying away from all these unhealthy situations, Mexican recipes or food that I'm used to eating when I was little. And so I wanted to try something with tofu because I was like, I need to just do something that it brings back memories when I was little, those smells that really take you back to your grandma's kitchen and your mom's kitchen. And so I was like, I just need to do something that my family can also enjoy, and I can pass it to my kids. And so I came out with the tofu chorizo. And most of the time it takes me like 2 to 3 times to get to the recipe that I really, really like and I know is gonna be a hit, especially when it's for one of my cookbooks. With this one, I have to say I'm very proud of this recipe because one time I did it, it was amazing. Wow. And the house smells so wonderful. And I really, really enjoy this recipe. And the best way of eating this recipe is with tortillas, which you talked about the whole wheat or the corn. And you can eat them as tacos, but we have to be careful with the amount of tacos that we eat.
Sure, yeah,
portions,
tacos
right?
go down pretty easy. So that's the nice thing about the corn is that it's already smaller. So you could have a couple of those and feel pretty good about that because that would be an appropriate serving size.
So I'm going to do this as you talk because I forgot to.
So one of the things I want to highlight in here that we're using are some of the chili peppers, and you can see, some of those up here. So chili peppers do more than just add spice and flavor. So they're in the capsicum family. They contain capsaicin. You may have heard of that. So that actually has some pretty good anti-inflammatory benefits. And they're researching it quite a bit for pain relief, whether that's related to arthritis or psoriasis or even diabetic neuropathy. So it actually does add some really good health benefits for you. The hotter the pepper is, the more capsaicin it has. It actually even has some good benefits for your heart. So it can help to reduce cholesterol, reduce your triglycerides, and it helps to prevent the fats in your blood from being damaged. And that damage that occurs is kind of what starts the whole process of atherosclerosis. So pretty good health benefits from all these peppers up here.
Awesome. We use them almost every day because we use this type of peppers for enchiladas. For menudo, of course, I don't like menudo, but it's one of the main things that to every Mexican household should have dry peppers. We make them for a lot of different things. And guisos, what we call them guisos, which you make a sauce with the peppers, garlic, onions, and then you just let it rest, and then you marinate your meat, and then you just make the meat with some rice and beans on the side. For the guajillo peppers, those peppers are mild hot. They're not really, really hot, but those are great for enchiladas. Also, the ancho chiles, which ancho chile is a poblano pepper dried. That's what it is. And it is an amazing pepper because we call it pasilla as well because it almost looks like a raisin.
Oh, okay.
You almost, if you look at it, it looks like a big raisin, right? That's what we call it pasilla, which is that comes from pasita, which is raisin. I don't want to confuse you guys. You look at me like, don't tell me all this stuff.
I'm going to remember one word out of all of this. That's my goal.
That's your goal. Okay. So second recipe, I'm going to go ahead and talk about this again, is tofu chorizo tacos. And the ingredients that we're utilizing today is 1 block of tofu, right? For the tofu, we're going to utilize the extra firm tofu. And I have it here. So what I did overnight, I put it in the container where I put a paper towel and then I put the tofu on top and I cover it. And maybe I can put something a little heavy like this and just let it kind of like soak up the towel. So I'm going to tell you what the towel looks like now. And it's very wet, right? So you get rid of this and you just leave the tofu on this side. So for the peppers, I was talking about the ingredients. Now, 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, which I have here. Another ingredient is garlic that we're using. For this recipe, I think 2 medium garlic cloves will be just enough. You don't want to overwhelm the chorizo. You want to be able to taste every single ingredient in there without making one the main ingredient. And then 1 guajillo pepper, which I have here. We also call it cascabel. It's like rattlesnake, right? So that's what that comes from. Cascabel is one of those snakes that make the dancing.
Yeah, it could be our
Yes.
fiesta like
Are
party.
they all mild, or is there some that are mild and some that are not?
Well, this one is mild hot, and also the pasilla that we're utilizing today. These 2 are pretty mild peppers. They're not going to be spicy at all. It's like poblano.
Or what it say, whether they're mild or hot?
They should say something, yes. But my mom usually uses a lot of this too, and she cannot eat a lot of spicy stuff, so we add just a little bit because sometimes it can be. I don't know if you ever tried poblano peppers, like chile rellenos. Some of those peppers are extremely hot, and some are not. And it's just like anything. When you dry them, maybe some are going to be a little hotter than the other ones. And this, if you look at this one, it looks like one of those California peppers, right? It's just dry. So 2 of those peppers just being dry, but they get very intense in flavor. And for whatever reason, I actually find the ancho to be a little on the sweet side. That's why some regions in Mexico call it pasilla, because pasilla is something sweet, which is a raisin. So it's kind of like, it looks like a big raisin, right? But if you smell them, I love smelling peppers and ingredients in general. You can actually smell the sweetness or how hot they can be. And then of course, you'll feel it on your fingers later today. Not right now. But yeah, this is the way we have to work with peppers. I usually put gloves, and I'm going to give you a trick that I've learned from my grandmother. And those tricks are always the best, right? Because I think grandmas are pretty smart people. So my grandma used to put gloves on in the kitchen, and when she would make recipes with a lot of peppers, because there's also pork tamales that we add peppers to. So Christmas, New Year's Eve. So the way of cleaning peppers, you take the stem, and then you take rid of all the seeds, right? And there's 2 ways of actually doing the peppers. You can actually leave them soaking overnight with warm water to get them soft and nice, at a nice texture, so that you can put them in the blender. But my mother would always, when she didn't have gloves, she would do a lot of oil on her hands, and then she would clean the peppers. So the oil would help not to get the spicy flavor from the peppers or the spicy element from the peppers, and she was fine, because you forget that you were working with peppers and you touch your eyes and stuff like that. But if you don't have gloves, she would definitely do a lot of oil, and it will be much safer to later touch your eyes. You know what I mean? Or now, the way we're gonna make this recipe, we would soak them overnight, or we will put them in boiling water until they get nice and soft. Sometimes it takes 15 minutes to 25 minutes. It really depends. And we only use in 1 each. Now, the next ingredient, going back to the ingredients, we're doing oregano, we're doing thyme, we're doing chili powder, paprika. We also doing, what do you call it?
Cloves
and cumin. For the cloves, we do in the ground, right? You don't want to do the actual clove. We want to do ground, and because all the stuff is going to be really simple, put it in the blender, and it's gonna be ready. So we would cook these peppers for maybe 15 minutes until they're soft. And all of my spices are here. I like putting all my spices on a plate so the kitchen can smell wonderful, and also so that I can see and I can always remember what goes. This is the way I do it. I put it on the plate, and next time I don't have to look at the recipe because I kind of remember what I had on the plate. I take a picture, and that'll help me, and I put it in the fridge.
Oh,
I do a lot of tricks like this. Pictures are really, really helpful when it comes to making recipes. Okay, so here, we already talked about all the ingredients. And for the tacos, of course, we're going to use 1 cup of chorizo for like 4 eggs and olive oil, tortillas. And for garnish, we're using cilantro, red onions, and queso fresco. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and add my peppers here, which I already have here. I left them soaking overnight. And so one goes in here, and then the next one. So you're tasting fresh chorizo today. We're making fresh chorizo. And then what I do is maybe 1/3 of a cup or 1/4 of a cup goes in here. And then don't throw away the water where they cooked or where they were soaking overnight so that you can use it if you need to. So we add in 2 chipotle peppers. I remember. Okay, I didn't mention the chipotle peppers. We're using 2 chipotle peppers. We are using 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. You can do the regular vinegar, but for whatever reason, I really enjoy the apple cider vinegar flavor. It's a little sweeter than the other one, right? It's not as intense in flavor. So 2 garlics. 1, 2. Since they're little, I'm going to add those 3. And then for my spices, paprika goes in here. And then the oregano. It's not looking complicated so far, right? I think what really takes the longest is getting all the ingredients together, right? You agree with me. Or whenever you have a recipe, it can be the most simple recipe, but if it has 10 ingredients, it gets a little complicated. So I always do my mise en place, which means everything in place, and it's just getting all the ingredients, measure all the ingredients, and put them on a plate like this, and you'll be fine. So cumin goes in here, and then chili powder. You can make chorizo with turmeric, and maybe you can also do a little bit of ginger. A lot of people add cinnamon to the chorizo. I like to keep it just simple. I don't like to make it too complicated. So by adding more of those flavors, you added more ingredients to the recipe, right? So keeping it simple, I think, is really a very smart way to make this recipe, especially because it can be a lot of ingredients. So this, we're going to go ahead and blend. And of course, we add in a little bit of salt. And maybe that's it. So having this little, the option of the small food processors, I think that's a great option. Okay, so I want my sous chef to smell this. If you like chorizo, this is fresh, it's organic, it's all made home, so I think it's a great option if you really want to. Now, the good thing is you can freeze it, and you can always have it available in your freezer or in the fridge for up to like 7 days. Okay, so tofu is right here. All you do with the tofu, put this here, is use the best tool in the kitchen, your hands, right? All you do is just gonna crumble this. Almost looks like cheese, right?
That's what I was thinking.
Well, it's soy cheese.
Well, sure.
So maybe it is cheese. Not a cow cheese. Okay, so what do you think so far? Until you taste it, you can tell me, right? That's not cool. Okay, I'm going to let you try it, and you're going to love it. How's that? Okay, so make sure that you really, really crumble this really well, because you don't want to leave like big pieces like this. Otherwise, the pepper is not going to get in there, right? So at this point, you add your sauce. Silent. Okay.
I was watching intently.
Okay. Nice. It smells so good. So, how fun is this going to be? You are learning how to make chorizo. This is a hardcore recipe from Mexico. Not everybody can do this. Really, it's like a very tough recipe. And just because of all the ingredients. But I wanted to go very simple with my recipe so that everybody could enjoy it at home and make it at home. So you just mixing. Now my sous chef is about to turn my heat on, right?
What do we need it at?
We are going to need it at a really nice high heat for right now. Okay, because I want y'all to smell this wonderful recipe. It smells so good.
You haven't talked about avocado at all.
Absolutely, that's a great idea.
It would be
Avocado?
fantastic. In fact, that's a good substitute for other types of fat that we traditionally have with Mexican dishes like cheese and sour cream. We know those aren't quite as healthy, whereas the avocado is much more healthy. Very good monounsaturated fats, and it still gives that really creamy, kind of rich feel to it. So sure, I like to add that to pretty much anything, and certainly these would be a good option.
That would be a good option, absolutely. You, absolutely. Oh, and believe me that, yes, if you're gonna eat it, yeah, absolutely, and the flavor is gonna get even better. Once you put it in the fridge overnight, the flavor is gonna get amazing. So make sure that you put it, and then I have something here so that I can demonstrate you guys. Because I don't know if you've ever seen the chorizo in supermarkets. It's like in one of those plastic things, and it's kind of like a, what do you call it? Like a cylinder kind of, right? Yes. So what I do at home, because this is pretty organic, we're gonna go ahead and add it to, and I have this glass here just to help me kind of like, if my mom is not there to help me hold it, then I get this as a helper. So I add my chorizo here. And so you want to make sure, this is what I do because I make it pretty often because my kids come and pick up bags, or my brother. So I put it in small Ziploc bags, and I make sure that all the air is out, and I wrap it really well. And also, you always want to make sure when you're making something like this, especially with tofu, you have to be really careful to not forget to put the date that you made it, which is September the 8th, 2015, and then make sure that you use by. So think about maybe 5 days the most. Just make sure that you put the day that you cannot make it anymore. So if you making all this chorizo, of course you're not gonna eat it all. You can put maybe 1 bag in the fridge with maybe 1 cup of chorizo, and the rest you can put it in the freezer to have it available in the freezer. So make sure that you do that right away. Don't wait until the next day, oh, I'm gonna freeze it. The same day you make it, the same day you date it, and then either put it in the freezer or leave it in the fridge. And I always like to get so this is what you would do, right? And you just put it in the fridge. But now we're gonna cook.
You want oil in here?
Yeah, we want a little bit of oil. Yeah.
Oops, too much.
And what we're gonna do, I'm gonna move this over here. This. Excellent. At this point, my chorizo is ready. But what I was gonna say is, additional ingredients that you can saute before you add the chorizo is onions, maybe garlic, not necessary because we already have some garlic here. But I like to caramelize some onions and then add the chorizo. That's your choice, right? But it sounds pretty yummy. And also, if you like spicy, maybe some serranos or some bell peppers or anything like that, add and saute them really nice to get soft and crystallize the onions. Then add the chorizo, and the tacos are going to be amazing. Other ways that you can eat your tacos, of course, is with garnish of queso fresco, or maybe some green onions and some cilantro. And that is totally your choice. You don't have to complicate it if you don't like it. You just make the eggs and chorizo, and that'll be it, right? Okay, so are you ready to smell this chorizo? It smells wonderful. Okay, let's get this one. So we're doing like 1 cup for 4 eggs. And right away, I mean, you can tell this is good because when you make when you make the real chorizo from the stores, well, this is a real one. I don't know what I'm talking about. You get all this oil jumping because the pork and other stuff in there that they add because it's processed is not good for you. So this is really nice, and you don't get all this chorizo jumping around out of the pan. So I'm gonna add a little more because we're making some tacos. I'm sorry? Let me tell you, my mom loves this chorizo. She asked for this. The other day she got mad because she ate it. She eats it every day when I make it. And so one morning, I remember that my son came over and he's like, "Oh, Mom, you made chorizo. I'm going to take one bag." And I said, "Yeah, go ahead and take it." And my mom in the morning, she got up and she was making tortillas. And then she's like, "Where's the chorizo?" And I said, "Give it to my son." She like, "I was about to make me some tacos." I said, "Mom, you eat it every day. Let other people taste it." But she, honestly, she loves it, And I can tell she brags with her friends. "My daughter just made some chorizo. It's so good." So I sent my mom's friends. They tried it already. They love it. So this is one of the recipes that my mom approves twice. Yes, absolutely. So we want to make sure that we cook the tofu just enough, right? And I don't know if y'all can smell, but it smells like chorizo. I mean, this is what it is, chorizo, right? So we have some eggs over here. And we do have some wheat flour tortillas that maybe y'all want to try with flour tortillas, or y'all want to try it with corn. I think the flour ones are amazing for this one.
We're going with flour.
Whole wheat.
Flour, whole wheat, yes, for more fiber.
Yeah, we're not giving you the wrong stuff here. So maybe we can heat up the tortillas here.
Sure.
My sous chef is amazing. She's going to help me today.
I'm gonna grab some gloves.
Okay. Exactly. You know what? My mom thinks like that. She's like, "I ate so much. I feel so bad." I'm like, "Mom, this is healthy. This is soy. This is not pork." "Oh, yeah, you're right. It's 'cause it's so good." And it really makes me feel like so guilty. But this is just a big sample of like what spices can do to food. It's just the other things that we add that make food to be unhealthy, or the processed foods. But if we take the time to make this at home, and spices and fresh herbs, they really make a big difference in all the stuff that we eat. And I usually have a lot of fresh ingredients at home so that I don't go for the unhealthy.
Which is good. If
Yeah.
it's not there, you can't.
Exactly.
You can't eat it.
So the choice starts when you go to the supermarket and start putting everything in the cart, right? That's where it starts. It doesn't start at home. "Oh, well, you know what? I don't have this. I'm going to use this. And tomorrow I'm going to start my diet." Or it's not even about diet. It's about eating healthy, right? So, okay. And at this point, I wanted to cook it so that spices can really get that really intense flavor. But for the tofu, about 12, even if you do it like this, 5 minutes is totally fine for the chorizo. Yeah.
So what am I doing with these?
We put in
Oh,
those
we're gonna
here.
warm 'em.
So I'm adding some eggs here. Any questions about this recipe? Just it smells so good that my face is getting nice and red. I get really...
That's what happens when you stand right here.
That happens when something is good. Okay, so eggs go in here. I'm sorry? I know they are. Yeah. See? You can feel it here.
I haven't. It's one of the. I probably need to branch out and try it. I might and try. Where is
Find
it?
what?
Is
I'm
it
sorry.
Tofu. Is it in the?
Okay, so whenever you go to the produce section, you're going to find it where most of the green smoothies are, and kind of like there's the herbs and then all the salads and spinach, and then a little corner at the end, kind of like when you're going to leave the produce section, it's going to be right in the corner. And you see tofu.
I've also seen it where kind of close to, almost to like the dairy section too, where they'll have like non-dairy cheese and they'll have tofu.
Yes.
Are there like vegetarian, vegan type things?
All the vegan stuff, yeah.
Be in there.
Absolutely. Okay.
Now you do want to skip most of the like soy products, the kind of veggie burger, the things that are highly processed, whereas this is just kind of the tofu. It's considered a whole soy food, so it's a much better option.
Okay, so the firm is good for this recipe because you don't want too much water into your chorizo. And the soft is wonderful for smoothies. So it's gonna make it very smooth. The smoothie is gonna be pretty smooth with the soft one. But for firm, let's say that you're making a tofu salad, and the recipe tells you to cut it into cubes, and put it in the oven with spices and just cook it in the oven or saute it. You want the firm one, otherwise it's gonna be all over the place. So it really depends. It's kind of like with avocado. You want firm avocados to, if you're gonna make a pico de gallo with diced avocados. But if you're making guacamole, then you want the really soft avocados. Yes, I thought you had a question.
Oh, no.
Okay.
I didn't.
So it's smelling like brunch in here, huh? It smells really good. How's the tortillas going?
They're going. Slowly but surely.
Okay, good. So on this, you can add serrano peppers. You can do cilantro. You can do, of course, let's say that we want to keep it absolutely vegan, no eggs whatsoever, right? So for vegan version, if you're making this chorizo, why don't you saute some zucchini, some yellow squash, some spinach, some potatoes, if you want to keep
Beans.
it vegan, right?
Could you do beans?
Beans, absolutely, yeah. So, and then don't do the eggs, right? Because I do have a lot of my followers, they ask for vegan recipes, so that will be a good vegan recipe just with veggies instead of the eggs. Okay? Are we ready to have somebody taste?
Yeah.
So everybody's okay with green onions and everything, right? Okay, good.